Sometimes it is very easy to forget that Nagato was the original leader of the Akatsuki, and that's mostly because there were 15,000 puppet masters above him in the grand scheme of things.
Oh my god.
And therefore, Nagato was ultimately just a pawn in the whole game of the shinobi world.
Do you want to play a game?
If you think about it, the pain bodies were manipulated by Nagato, Nagato was manipulated by Obito, Obito was manipulated by Madara, Madara was manipulated by Black Zetsu, Black Zetsu was manipulated by Kaguya. So yeah, Nagato is in the bottom of this list. Everyone in this list, except for Nagato himself, had the same objective for why they were gathering the Tailed Beasts, which was to cast the Infinite Tsukuyomi on the moon. Obito and Madara wanted to cast Infinite Tsukuyomi so that the world could live without losers in that perfect paradise. Zetsu and Kaguya wanted the Infinite Tsukuyomi to be cast so that Kaguya could return.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
All four of them wanted the perfect Tsukuyomi to happen, and that's why they were gathering the Tailed Beasts. Nagato, however, had very different ideas. And before we get to those, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to this channel. Obviously, Nagato didn't know he was being manipulated by Obito. That's the definition of manipulation. You don't really know it's happening until it's too late, or at all. And he also did not know about the Infinite Tsukuyomi plan Obito/Madara were trying to implement. Nagato had his own reasons for collecting the Tailed Beasts, and I'm gonna say it, his plan was insane. But it's very compelling, and it could work. Nagato tells us about this plan when he is fighting against Jiraiya. Jiraiya asks him why he's doing all this while he is fighting the animal path, and Nagato essentially tells him everything because he tells Jiraiya he's gonna die anyway, so it doesn't matter if he knows.
This video you will see how to make doner kebab from start to finish.
I guess that was a token of gratitude for Jiraiya teaching him all those years ago. He knows the truth before he dies. Not that that's a very good thing.
The 3 stages how to prepare meat doner kebab.
Nagato wants to become a god. He says he's ascended to godhood through the pain he's experienced, and he will make the world a peaceful place. He says it himself, he's a pacifist deity, and that's the reason for acquiring all the Tailed Beasts, to assure world peace. But how is he going to achieve that? Well, that's the very interesting part. By combining every single Tailed Beast, Nagato means to create a forbidden jutsu so powerful and destructive that it could wipe out an entire nation in a split second. A jutsu so potent that millions, maybe 15 million deaths would happen at the same time.
A lot of killing.
And you may be thinking, oh, okay, so he's gonna use that to make the world fear him and experience his pain so that they will stop warring. Well, no, because that wouldn't be very intelligent. If Nagato chose to develop these jutsus of mass destruction and use them against the world, something similar to what would happen later in the series will just occur naturally. The entire world will ally itself against the Akatsuki, just like how it happened when Obito declared war. And let's be real, even if the Akatsuki is very powerful, they don't have the numbers to fight the entire world. Sure, maybe a weapon of mass destruction would destroy a lot of the allied forces that would come after them, but eventually they would lose. And if they lose, the world does not achieve peace. So why would Nagato even create the weapons? Well, he intended to create that forbidden jutsu and give it to all nations on the planet.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Those nations would then use the jutsu against each other. Nagato says it himself. They can't help it. They are always at war. They will use these weapons against each other. Of course, the initial war, whenever this happens, would be catastrophic. Millions, if not billions of deaths would happen. We don't know for certain how many people live in the countries in the Naruto world and all that, but it would be a lot. It would be
tragic.
But after that, people would realize the futility of war, and they would understand pain. And through that pain, they would stop warring. When they understand the same pain Nagato went through, they will no longer use those jutsus against each other, and they'll just stop fighting altogether because they'll destroy themselves and experience even more pain if they do so. Now, this raises many different questions. How would Nagato even go about creating this jutsu? Well, we see that the Ten Tails was capable of throwing Bijudamas across the continent, destroying entire cities, if not more.
Now that's a lot of damage!
So it is very reasonable to assume that with the power of the Jubi, that would be achievable, though Nagato did not intend to create the Ten Tails. With the Rinnegan and using the power of the Sage of Six Paths and the creation of all things, he could create a bomb, essentially, from the chakra of the 9 bijus and harness it in a way that allows other people to use it. And so he would create several of them and distribute them around the world. Think about it. Everyone would accept it. Nagato would just say, hey, everyone else has it. Don't you want it too?
I'm not the monster. No, I'm just ahead of the curve.
And let's be very real here. This is an allegory to nuclear weapons. It's just very easy to see it. Nuclear weapons are extremely destructive and have the potential to destroy the world, but for better or for worse, they were the reason why the later half of the 20th century and most of the 21st century were devoid of large-scale wars.
Ironic.
Nuclear weapons were the reason why a third world war hasn't happened yet, because mutually assured destruction is just something that does not benefit anyone whatsoever, and that's the only reason why the United States and the Soviet Union didn't destroy each other during the Cold War. This is exactly what Pain wants to do here. He wants to make sure that everyone has this powerful weapon so that nobody even uses it, but he expects them to use at first, which also happened in the real world with the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Using those weapons became a taboo because of how powerful and destructive they were. So you can see the parallels with the real world. However, it's not a one-for-one comparison here, because in our world, scientists developed the atomic bomb, and in the Naruto world, a god essentially would deliver it to you, to your nation, which would be very different. First, because the nations wouldn't be sure about the destructive capabilities at first. Before atomic bombs were used in the real world, they were very much tested, and the scientists knew about the destructive capabilities of those weapons before they used it. But unless Pain told them about it, which maybe he would or maybe he wouldn't, the nations wouldn't really know or even grasp what they had. So they would probably not be as reluctant to use them at first. And then, of course, this would lead to catastrophe in the Naruto world, and possibly even an apocalyptical war where essentially the entire world is destroyed, depending on how many of these weapons Nagato gives to all the nations. Because the end of the world was a very serious thing people were discussing whenever the Cold War was happening, and that was one of the reasons why those weapons were never used again, especially when there was more than one nation that possessed them. And you just cannot know how crazy people in command would react to those weapons. Things in the Naruto world would probably go very bad, much worse than a Cold War scenario if Nagato was to distribute those weapons of mass destruction. If we try to compare this situation to our real world, it would be similar to God coming down from the sky in 1913, before the First World War happened, and giving atom bombs to every single major nation in the world and telling them a little bit about what they do and how to operate them and just go away. Those nations nations wouldn't really understand. They would know how to use them, and they would know what they do in a very basic sense, but they'll be like, okay, it's our chance now. We can go to war and use those weapons to win. But, well, the consequences would be devastating, as you may think. If the First World War was bad, in our real world, imagine with atom bombs a god gave to them. It would be the end of civilization, and that's what could probably happen in the Naruto world. So yeah, this plan from Nagato really takes that risk. Maybe nations will come to an understanding that they should no longer use those weapons because they've experienced so much pain, but there's always the chance that they'll just keep on using them and destroy the entire planet and every single life form in it. A little bit risky if you ask me, Nagato. Well, he's never been the most sane person to begin with, so that kind of makes sense for his character. Let me know in the comments what you think about this insane plan, and if you think it was gonna work somehow. Like this video and subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching.
I'm just ahead of the curve.